February 15 meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission at the Don B. Griffin Room at the Town Hall in Harwich. This meeting is being held in a hybrid fashion. If you're watching on Channel 18 and would like to participate remotely, you can find instructions on the agenda, which can be found on the Town of Harwich website. So, the first item on the agenda tonight is a request for determination of applicability for 1232 Orleans Road, map 73, parcel X 172, for a proposed access path and rebuild of stairs. Do we have someone representing the applicant here, online perhaps?
Yes, you have the applicant.
Okay. You want to proceed and present your application?
Absolutely. So thank you for your time. We're just hoping to get some things off the list here, and I'll start with, so the first thing we would like to do
Excuse
is
me?
to,
Excuse me, can you
we
please
have-
start by identifying yourself?
yes, my name is Narcissa. I'm the homeowner.
Narcissa, can you give your full name, please?
Yes, Narcissa Dervishovic.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So we have these existing stepping stones on the front. They're existing bluestone, and they weren't maintained at all. And it seems like they're neglected, and they're uneven. So we just wanted to make the land above below them even, and then just put them on top. So that was the first item. Which these are just existing. We just wanted to maintain them, redo them.
Is that your complete request here, the stepping stones out front?
But that's one part. That's one part.
Proceed.
Then the next part is we actually have some existing steps around the deck, and there was a permit in 2010. We were approved in 2010 with a site plan, and we would just like to rebuild them because they were neglected too. And the previous homeowner didn't take any care of them, so we would just like to use the same material and just rebuild them. And then the next thing would be to maintain an egress path around the deck, just to clean it up a little bit, just to maintain it really, so it can be walkable.
4 feet or less.
It would be 4 feet or less in width. And the last part of this request would be to a proposed pathway leading from the door in the basement to the little beach area next to that pond. So we would just like to clean out a path. 4 feet or less. Again, take care of the brushes and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
That would be all.
Thank you. As the homeowner said, most of the components here are kind of bringing back things that were once present and permitted, such as a little set of stairs off of the concrete wall. Putting the existing stepping stones or kind of bringing them back up to the surface. There's 2 or 3 little sapling oak trees that are growing very close to the back of the deck, and those would be removed in order to maintain that 4 feet of egress around. And then for the path, Melissa had worked with the property owners to kind of come up with that it would be no more than a 4-foot path, just kind of in the dirt, in order, and kind of snake through the trees so that you're not taking out any major trees, just maybe, running a gravely machine once through there to kind of mulch up a little bit of the smaller stuff to create an actual path. I would recommend, just for yourselves, is to use dead wood or something like that to line the path so that it remains kind of obvious that that's the path you're to use to get to the water.
Okay.
And we would have an on-site meeting prior to, I would like to meet on-site with you prior to you creating that path anyways, to make sure we're clear about exactly where it's going to be. And I would recommend approval of the project with a -2 and 3 determination that the work would take place on an inland bank and in the buffer, but will not have an adverse impact.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Do we have comments from the commissioners? Wayne?
I don't have any comments. It's pretty simple.
No comment. I don't have any questions or comments either. We have a motion.
Sure. I'll move that we approve the request for determination of applicability for 1232 Orleans Road, map 73, parcel X172, with a -2 and -3 determination.
We have a
A
second.
second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? All set? Yes.
So Narcissa, we will have this ready to go for in a few days, and we'll give you a phone call. I just wanted to take this opportunity with a lot of people in the room. If you could all please sign in the back of the room, that would be really helpful. If you'll pass it around, so you don't all have to get up, but that would be really helpful for us. Also, if anybody is here for 194 John Joseph Road, that will not be heard tonight. They have requested a continuance till March 1st. If you want more information on that, call our office.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a notice of intent for, 194 John Joseph Road, map 72, parcel G1-2, for the construction of retaining walls, reconstruction of patio and deck, and site improvements, as you just said.
Sorry, is that where it is on the agenda?
That's second, no, I skipped, sorry. Skipping ahead, well, can we just take care of this now?
Sure, I'm sorry.
Since there's been a request for a continuance until March 1st.
Okay, I'll move that we continue the public hearing on 194 John Joseph Road, map 72, parcel G1-2, to our meeting of March 1st, 2023.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, thank you. Okay, so, sorry. The next on the agenda is a request for an amended order of conditions for 23 Snowin Road, map 8, parcel P2, SE 32-2387, and NHESP file number 11-29126 for reconfiguration of beach grass mitigation area and incorporation of HCP filed with NHESP, that is Habitat Conservation Plan filed with NHESP. Thank you. So do we have someone speaking for Witchmere?
Yes, Jonathan Schuster here with SWCA on behalf of Witchmere Beach Club and Witchmere Harbor Realty. If it's all right with the chair, I can get right into it.
Please go ahead.
Share screen here. Great. Share my screen. So a few months prior, we had a few meetings with your commission. There was a beach management plan, which had a letter of support issued as well as a habitat conservation plan draft that your commission reviewed. We were advised to allow formal review by your commission, and we're doing that of the HCP, and we're wrapping that into our request for an amended order of conditions. The main impetus for the request for an amended order of conditions is the beach grass plantings, which were mitigation for a 2019 permit that is still open. So sharing my screen here, if you can see my cursor, there are two block plantings. There's a large eastern block here. It's kind of an odd sort of trapezoidal shape, and a narrow block here. And again, this is beach grass that was planted. It successfully took, but through various talks with Witchmere, also Amy has been out to the site. The applicant realizes they'd like it more in a configuration similar to the green layout here. And we're talking just the eastern block. It's about 10,200 square feet, and only a portion of that would be replanted. We're aiming to do that this spring. Here's a sketch that was provided in the request. So this dotted area is the original planting extent of the eastern area, and there you see the western area where my cursor is. So basically, this right-hand side, the eastern side of these plantings would not move, but the western portion of these plantings would be redistributed north and slightly south into a narrower band. This has various operational advantages for Witchmere, as well as aesthetic. And also, there could be advantages for least terns, which nest at the site. The grass does provide cover to plovers and least terns, but in its current configuration, it's a bit dense. So kind of stretching it out this way could allow a bit more nesting in this area up here. At the very same time, we've included the habitat conservation plan, which functionally it would allow Witchmere to use more of their beach in the season. This has the support of Mass Audubon Coastal Waterbird Program, as well as NHESP, that's Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. We're working with the coastal waterbird biologist there, who actually recommended that Witchmere enter this program to allow for a bit more flexibility. We do anticipate that the implementation of the HCP would result in a take. We have received a response letter to that end, so we're waiting for all those pieces to be put in place. I originally had done some explanations about the HCP to your commission. I'm happy to relay some more details. I'll just provide a little here, and then if there are remaining questions, I'm happy to answer those. Basically, there are a few methods of deterrence that would be employed mostly in the western portion here in order to reduce spending to this light brown configuration that you see here. And basically, this would allow Witchmere to have more functional space for their operations in the western part of the site, while not necessarily decreasing the number of birds that are nesting. We propose frequent beach raking, as frequently as 5 times a week or potentially daily. And a few other methods are employed that, temporary deployment of pallets on the beach as a deterrent. And again, this would all be permitted through the state and the federal government. Basically, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would issue a certificate of inclusion because piping plovers are federally listed. So again, we anticipate to implement this this season, so starting in April, so that's coming up soon. And in terms of the plantings, we hope to reconfigure that before April 1st, so next month, hopefully, with your approval. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have about either component of this request.
Amy.
Thank you. We'll start with the beach grass plantings, the shifting in the location. Back when we first discussed where all this beach grass planting should go, which was as mitigation for the tiki bar deck and boardwalk that is on the beach up closer to the beach club, there were 2 areas that were permitted. One was on the west end near the town's Myrtle Beach area, and that's not proposed to be altered in any way. That is doing really well. I was down there just yesterday, and the beach grass is doing what it's supposed to do, which is to capture wind-blown sand and to create more of a dune rather than a flat beach, and it's looking really good. On the east end, they have a larger block of beach grass that they planted, and what they're requesting to do is to move about 5,400 square feet of that in kind of more of a naturally curved way, but it will extend kind of along the channel and the revetment there. This makes sense to me for a lot of reasons. It will help actually keep sand on the site rather blowing into and over the jetty into the Witchmere Channel, which we then just dredge out every single year. It'll actually help keep some more sand there and create more of a dune habitat rather than just a flat area. It could be more enticing to terns in that location as well. I don't think there is a negative impact to moving some of that beach grass as they've proposed to have it. In regards to the habitat conservation plan, at the last meeting, the commission wanted to see those components added into the notice of intent here because there were deterrent methods that we don't currently have covered under their beach maintenance existing, permit conditions. And that's things such as using matting or pallets and more deterrent flagging. This isn't something that myself or I don't think this board has really seen in the past. This is a new thing that the state and federal government, and Jonathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong or add, but it's kind of a new thing that they're considering is allowing a take where there has not been for piping plovers in the past. I had a great conversation with Carolyn Mostello at the state, as well as been emailing back and forth with Lyra Brennan, who's the head of the Coastal Waterbird Program down here. They are both behind this, and primary reason it will require much more oversight of the activities that actually are taking place on the property, much more reporting, more consistent oversight. And Carolyn gave me a great presentation that I put in your Dropbox, kind of about the status of the piping plover in Massachusetts and in general the East Coast. When the birds were listed, the goal was to have 600 pairs of plovers in New England, 600 in the New Jersey, New York area, and 600 farther south in the southeastern United States. Those other with the exception of our area, and it's thanks to Massachusetts, all those other areas are still below that 600 pair ideal is where they want it to at least be. In Massachusetts alone, we have over 800 pairs. So we've taken care of New England, essentially. So I thought that was really interesting, and I think that's potentially a reason why they're thinking that it would be okay to relax a little bit of this and potentially allow a take. And what a take means is not mortality or anything. It's activities that could dissuade birds from nesting where they may want to. And it's not throughout the whole site. Maybe Jonathan, you could be clear about how much of a reduction it would be, because I don't want people to think it's like the whole beachfront area that they're doing these methods.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to provide a little more context. And just one thing I'll clarify is the Habitat Conservation Plan. There are multiple other sites throughout the state which have entered this plan and are implementing some of these measures. A lot of them are town beaches. This has been implemented, for instance, if there's a kind of a big public access area at a frequented beach and a plover nest right there. And it includes all sorts of measures. Basically, we wanted to ask for every possible measure we might need in the future, stretching out possibly 25 years. And at any time, if the status of the plover changes, the state has the authority to change the terms of this. So if plovers become more rare, that would change the calculus here. We have permission to only impact the behavior of a few pairs at the site, not all the pairs. And initially, in April and May, only impact 20% of the nesting habitat on the site. So very modest, 1/5 of the area initially, although we are asking for additional permissions to reduce the buffers to certain nests. So functionally, let's say June and July, we could have less fencing on the beach with the same number of pairs. And all of this has very rigorous monitoring. I neglected to mention that in the letter addressed to your commission, we've addressed the various wetland resource areas that are at play here. And honestly, we don't think that there's any functional impact from these very minimal measures, and that basically the state's authority in reviewing this and taking it to the feds in terms of the impacts to plovers will be a very rigorous review, and there will also be a public comment period for this HCP for all abutters, people in the state, interested parties to weigh in before this is implemented.
So my recommendation to you is that you approve the plan for them to move the beach grass plantings. And I would recommend that they do that before April 1st. One, the cooler months are better for beach grass, and also it's gonna be before the plovers arrive. And secondly, I would recommend that you do not write a letter to endorse the HCP, but also that you don't write one to not support it. But essentially that in your order of conditions, should you approve, that you state, should the state and the federal government approve the habitat conservation plan, that we allow them to do that as well, which means putting down the matting, maybe a little bit extra, deterrence, things like that. But, so kind of make it contingent upon the HCP being allowed by the state and federal government. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Comments from commission?
No comment. No.
Al?
Pretty straightforward.
Jim?
No comment.
Well, I have questions. Try to keep them to a minimum, but I actually, I have questions about something that was included in all the materials that you guys provided, which is a presentation from Mass Wildlife on, I guess it's both plovers and least terns. And on, let's see, what page is this? I guess it's the last slide. There's a slide titled Productivity, and it's just a chart with some cute pictures of some piping plovers, but and it shows, it's sort of showing productivity. I mean, I take this as productivity as a function of number of permitted sites, and it's pretty obvious from looking at this that as the number of sites I think this applies to the state, as the number of sites, that is, who have habitat conservation plans, as the number of sites have increased from 2 in 2016 to 10 in 2020, the per pair and per site productivity has decreased in the state, which to me, that's a concerning thing, and one of the reasons I don't fully understand why the state and Audubon are supporting this and encouraging Witchmere and, by implication, Harwich to support this stuff. So maybe you can address this, Jonathan. I also have a question about just a related section in the HCP itself, I think it is. But if you want to respond, or if you can respond in any way to what my just comment, the comment I just made, I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, I can just move on to a related question in the plan.
Sure, I can address that briefly. One thing I'll say is that the presentation you saw is not an official part of our submittal. That was, I believe that was materials related to Amy directly from the state, although it's certainly helpful information. The HCP documents do include productivity data specifically for Witchmere, and you'll see that it is one of the most productive smaller sites in the state for both plovers and least terns, well above the state average. The last 2 seasons, there were 5 pairs of plover on what is a very small beach. And again, we are only asking for a minority of that beach area that is nesting habitat to be impacted under this in a limited number of pairs. And when we say take, we're not saying, this is not necessarily mortality. It could lead to a decrease in productivity, and that's something that is being mitigated for under the HCP. So Witchmere is providing mitigation, legally required mitigation to the state. And that's a very important component of the HCP, and otherwise they would not be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. So my related question refers to section 6.3, site-specific productivity impacts. In I think it's the HCP itself, where you basically say your worst case estimate of the take is a 50% reduction in productivity. Am I interpreting that correctly? That you consider the worst case possibility here is you're cutting the productivity in half? And just an ancillary question is, I think you're implying in the next paragraph that 50% reduction in take would result in only replacement productivity. That is 1.2 fledges per pair. Oh, yes. You're stating here that the state considers that to be a benchmark where population replacement is met. So the possibility is here is productivity will be reduced to the point of barely replacement productivity. Is that correct? On this site that you consider to be a higher productivity site than most of the rest of the state? That's my question.
Not necessarily. So a couple things if I may. Back to this relates to the first question that I just answered. One additional piece of information is that low productivity in any given year there's so many factors that go into that. There could be, very rough storms in May that cause plover, a lot of overwash events. There are so many factors that affect plover productivity. I used to work for Mass Audubon, and we analyzed over a decade of nesting data to look specifically at overwash and predation and other factors. At Witchmere specifically, those numbers you're looking at are mandated numbers. So looking at Witchmere's existing productivity and looking at the HCP guidelines, making an assumption of 50% was necessary to produce a number to put in there. We don't want the productivity to be reduced. The productivity may not be reduced at all. What the HCP allows is for certain activities to take place which might or could affect productivity in the remote sense. So for instance, increased beach raking with a monitor, that is a daily disruption to, let's say, 20% of the site. Yeah, it stands to reason that a plover is not going to want to nest there. It might move eastward if we're, just raking the western part of the site, and we may have the same number of pairs. But the HCP allows for the contingency that if that raking or those streamers would result in there being fewer plovers occupying the site, or the same number of plovers but with reduced productivity, that has been accounted for and mitigated for. And that's what I want to emphasize here is the mitigation, that we don't necessarily anticipate impacts of the magnitude that you quoted, but we have mitigated according to all the requirements of the HCP. And that's a very important component both to the federal government and the state.
Okay. And just, I'm sorry, follow up. The mitigation is monetary mitigation, is that correct? Do I have that right, or am I missing something?
Yep, it can take multiple forms. It could be something like predator control. It could be a form of mitigation at certain sites. But the monetary mitigation is directly used for conservation at other sites, which are a high priority. For instance, let's say a site doesn't have as good productivity as Witchmere or needs some additional monitoring assistance, so that that offset will be well allocated by the state. And keep in mind that the state controls the number of takes. So that there is a finite pool in each year based on plover population and productivity. And again, the plover population is a real success story in the state, and it is state threatened and federally threatened in this region. There are other regions actually where it's federally endangered, like the Great Lakes. But plovers, there is get back to my point, there's a finite number that the state can allocate. So should conditions change in the near future, a couple really bad years, the conditions of the HCP would be modified for each site that is contained within it. So Witchmere would be one of those sites should we enter it this spring. So the state is monitoring all of this. The federal government has a say. It's very controlled, and it allows some flexibility that, as Amy attested to, the state is on board with, and Mass Audubon is on board with, who's been monitoring the site for many, many years and has seen, you know, all the challenges across the Cape with monitoring these sites.
One final question. To your knowledge, does either the state or the federal government have a threshold above which they don't consider piping plovers to any longer be threatened? In terms of a count of mating pairs in our region where the goal has been 600. How many mating pairs would be required for the state or the federal government or both not to consider plovers to be a threatened species?
I don't know that number, and I don't know if there's necessarily a number that exists. I'll say that delisting or downlisting to, say, a special concern species, that has happened in the past at the state level. I mean, I'm thinking of something like spotted turtles, for instance. It used to be state listed, but it would be very, I would find that very far-fetched that in the next decade or two that would happen. I think you're going to see things like this HCP, which the plover listing status has not changed, but the general context of their population success in this state has allowed a program like the HCP to be implemented to continue to ensure that the population is at least maintained or grows, but allows that little bit of operational flexibility for a really good candidate like Witchmere. That Witchmere has an incredible history of partnership with Mass Audubon in managing their beach despite all the challenges. And if you can imagine from Witchmere's perspective, just, you know, 5 or 6 years ago, having 1 or 2 pairs of plover and no lease terns, and now having 5 pairs on a pretty small beach with a large lease tern colony, that's been some very mighty challenges, and the state understands that, Mass Audubon understands that, and the HCP is mutually beneficial. It allows the state and Mass Audubon to have the tools to really monitor the site well. You know, there's issues with off-leash dogs coming from the west, from the public beach. There are other various issues that will benefit from having this increased oversight there, while Witchmere benefits from a little bit of increased operational flexibility.
Okay, thank you. I guess I should just say, having asked these questions, I support what Amy is recommending, and I do recognize all the effort that Witchmere and its partners have put into this, and I understand there's a compromise here, and think we need to move ahead with this, but I also think there's reason to ask questions about these things rather than just shake our heads in agreement. And I still don't quite understand how we're really moving these things towards a non-threatened status, which presumably is the objective here, but that's all right. I don't think we're gonna solve that problem tonight, so I've had my questions answered, thank you. And so, is there any further discussion from the board? Anybody in the public who wants to ask any further questions? No. I take it none, so hearing none, Jim, or anybody
Okay,
want to
I
make a
will
motion?
make a motion that we approve the request for an amendment to the order of conditions for 23 Snow Inn Road, map 8, parcel P2, SE 32-2387, but only to the extent of their request to reconfigure beach grass, and under the condition that that reconfiguring is done prior to April 1st or after September 1st. And that in addition, should the NPESP approve the Habitat Conservation Plan, the commission will allow the conditions in that approved plan be incorporated into our order of conditions.
I'll second.
Discussion. I just have, you said NPESP, it's NHESP, right?
Okay, I'll accept
Yes.
that amendment, John,
Just
sorry
to
about that.
clarify. Okay, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda is a notice of intent for 25 Trout Brook and 27 Soundview Road, map 26, parcel C1-6 and L1-9 for construction of a reinforcing retaining wall.
Good evening. For the record, Jen Crawford here on behalf of the applicant. With me online, you have the civil engineer, Stephanie Sequin from Ryder and Wilcox. You have the structural engineer as well from Coastal Engineering, and the applicant, I believe, is online, as well as the contractor for the project. So you have a whole passel of people. Unfortunately, you have to look at me. So I believe Stephanie is on the line, and she will begin the presentation for the application,
Okay,
I think.
is she there?
She had said that she had another,
She has a ZBA thing, I believe, in Eastham. The last I heard, she was
Yeah.
there. And if not, I can give you a general overview.
yeah, I do see her on her name, but it's not highlighted that she's there.
All right, well, then you're gonna listen to me. I'll do my very best.
If the structural engineer is here too, then great.
Yes, correct. So, general overview of the project is, there's an existing, basically failing retaining wall, that, needs to be replaced, and it can't be replaced exactly as it is, for structural reasons, which the structural engineer can attest to if you have questions about it. And so we have submitted an application to replace it. We've shown the construction access corridor. There are some trees that will need to be removed in order to get the appropriate equipment to the area to complete the work. As the environmental consultant on the project, we've provided mitigation for the project for basically the footprint that the new wall will take up, which is more, I don't want to say seaward, it's not quite the right term, but it is a little bit closer to the resource area than the existing wall that is there. So we've provided the appropriate mitigation in the form of lawn reduction, and as well as restoration notes and protocols for restoring the construction access area to basically pre-existing conditions, as well as tree replacement as appropriate. That is about what I have to contribute. So, with that, please ask questions, and if there are ones that I can answer, great, and the other team members are online for you.
Amy.
Thank you. Do you have, I don't seem to have any more of my landscape or my mitigation plans left in my file. I didn't know if you had any. Sorry.
Like copies?
Yeah,
I have an 11 by 17 printout.
okay,
Would that be helpful
sure.
to anyone?
It'll be helpful for me, because I did review it, and I agree with your plan, but for some reason I didn't see, paper copies in my file. I do remember seeing this. Okay, sorry about that. So, a little bit history here. The property owners last year kind of got an emergency approval from the Conservation Department to essentially shore up a failing old railroad tie wall that is holding up the deck, a gazebo, it's either office or exercise room or something like that above, all tied into the dwelling. It's a very, very, very steep embankment with a lot of pressure behind that wall. The wall started to fail. They did an initial kind of Band-Aid approach, knowing that they would be filing more fully, which is what you see here in front of you, for a replacement wall. What they would like to do is have a new wall in front of this one. It happens to be on the coastal bank itself, along the banking to the river. And it is about a foot or so more towards the wetland than existing. The trickiest part of this site is the access. We went to the site today to show the commissioners, and it's very, very steep. It would be nice if you could just access it from one direction, but you can't, based on that slope that wall is on. So in order to access with a machine, they will need to take down 10 trees. They are proposing to put back 10 trees, in addition to the mitigation and lawn reduction that you see. And Jen, if you don't mind, I'm gonna pass this around just so they can
Please
see
do.
it, because I don't know if they have one.
It's in Dropbox, so.
Okay. I don't know where the
I don't know.
copies
No.
went, so my apologies. But we'll pass that around. I don't have any questions. I would and they did ask for a variance for work in the 0 to 50. I think that this qualifies for a hardship, or qualifies for a variance, because they're basically doing the only amount of work that they can do in order to alleviate the hazard, and it's a structural hazard to the property. They're not asking for additional work on this property other than the planting. So I would recommend approval of the project and the variance.
Okay, thank you. Comments? Let's start with you, Sophia.
Everything looked good to me at the site visit. My only comment while we were there was admiring the nice tupelo trees that are right by the wall that you're fixing, and it would be great to see those freed of vines. But it sounds like you guys are set to do a lot of work there, so yeah, nothing.
We're putting in 5 more.
Awesome. Tupelo.
Mark?
What's the life expectancy of the wall that's going to be put in?
That is not a question that I can answer, sir, but I am hoping that either the structural engineer or the contractor can comment on that for you.
Please.
Is the structural who is the structural engineer? Oh, there we go.
Hi, my name is Kevin Donovan. I'm with Coastal Engineering. I'm the structural engineer on the project. Yeah, I think we're speccing out durable materials. We would expect that this wall would last anywhere from 30 to 50 or more years. So I think that's a reasonable approximation.
Is there, would a more lengthy product be a consideration? Was riprap ever considered in that application, or is there a reason not to?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good application for riprap, just because of the steep nature of the slope. So what we're proposing is a helical anchor solution. And these are used for supporting and underpinning building foundations. So when I say 30 to 50 years, I think those are conservative numbers. These are materials that are used for long-term building support. So it's equal in durability to something that you'd see for support of a building. The most if there was a component that's less, that would have a life less than that of the helicals, it would be the wood products. But we're calling for pressure treated wood products there. So I think a reasonable assumption for those pressure treated products is conservatively 30 to 50 years.
Thank you.
I don't have any comments.
Jim?
Yeah, just one question. From what I see and from what you said, the access to the site for the work is going to have to be across neighboring property,
Yes,
not property owned by the applicant. Is that correct?
kind of correct. So 27 Soundview is the main access for the property, but it is held in ownership partially by this applicant and has the support of the other owner. And so one of the reasons why we're trying to move forward with this application is because that particular parcel, they are looking to donate that parcel to Harwich Conservation Trust. So we're trying to get this portion of it and the access required to replace the wall over that parcel approved so that that work can be done, and then the parcel can be donated by this applicant and the other owner to HCT. So it's a little convoluted, but the answer to your question is kind of.
Okay, so, I mean, my direct question, which I think you've probably answered, is that the applicant does have the rights
Correct.
at the present time in order to access as
That is
shown on the
correct.
plan.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alan?
No questions.
Wayne?
The only question I had, and I think I already answered it by reading the notes here, is that all that lumber's gonna be pressure treated, right? You're selling yellow pine?
Again, not a question for me, but
Yeah, we've got durable materials spec'd out. We have pressure treated materials, and I'm just looking through my notes right now. Yeah, these are all we're spec'ing out pressure treated everywhere.
Okay.
Okay.
Galvanized steel, for the steel materials.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. Wayne?
I'm all set.
I just have a couple things. One is, when we were out there today, looked to me like there was some damage to the underpinnings of the gazebo or office area there. In the floor joist, there's insulation and some plywood holding the insulation in place, except the plywood isn't really staying in place anymore. And it looks like there's an irrigation head under there, probably spraying up into that. I'm wondering if there are repairs planned, or whether you know that there's a problem there. Presumably that's something that will be fixed, and it should be included, since that's in the resource area. Whatever you're gonna do there, we should be including in any order of conditions here. So I don't know if again, it's a question for the structural engineer, whether the issue I'm talking about was noted and is in your plans, or is it something that needs to be reviewed?
I can't speak to whether.
Well, can you tell me,
Go ahead.
I'm the contractor. I'm the contractor for the job. We have reviewed that area. I was actually the one who pulled the plywood out from underneath that to view the existing floor joists. And the plan is to remove some of the dirt, the earth that's up there that's too close. The plywood will come down, the insulation is gonna come down. We will be replacing that and then putting proper materials on the underside of that will be better than the plywood that's there now. Also, there's a joist. Part of the structural plan is there's a joist in the header that has to get, the elevation of the header for the joist has to get brought back up in order for the retaining wall to get built. So all of those joists will be worked on as we're doing that work.
Okay, thank you, Amy. How do you want to deal with this?
I think we can wrap that into the order of conditions. I don't see that as a main issue. They'll have to go for building permits regardless anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
All right, that's all I have. Any further discussion? Anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, can we have a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for 25 Trek Brook and 27 Soundview Road, map 26, parcel C1-6 and L1-9, and that we approve a variance for conduct of work within the 0 to 50 foot no disturb zone.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here's your plan.
Thank you.
This is the owner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Excuse me, next on the agenda, Amy stepped away for a minute, but I assume she'll be back. Next on the agenda is 2285 and 2287, Route 28, Head of the Bay Road, map 119, parcels N7-3 and N8-0, changes to parking areas, retaining walls, walkways, stairs, and deck. John, do you want to just wait a moment until Amy returns?
I was getting nervous that she ran out of the room when I come up.
Well,
It's never a good sign.
well, yeah, if we all get up and leave too, then you really have to hurry.
Then you're in trouble.
I'd be happy to wait. That's all right.
You waiting for me?
Yeah, we were waiting for you.
Please don't.
Good evening. For the record, I'm John O'Reilly. We were here 2 weeks ago, reviewed the project with you folks. We have 3 different components to this project. Some repairs to the deck driveway for 2285 Head of the Bay, and then a handicapped accessibility component, which is sandwiched between 2070 Route 28 and 2287 Route 28, also known as Head of the Bay. This property is is also in Brewster and Orleans. So we're here tonight to review, the commission had asked for additional mitigation, which we have incorporated into the plan as a result of the additional hardscape for the handicapped component. So we have prepared a plant sketch. I've gone with some rather large shrubs. I've got some northern bayberry, I've got the high bush blueberry, but I'm also adding one black oak and 2 eastern red cedars, which will add some great diversity to this area. And I'm also proposing the ground cover to be a wildflower seed mix or a drought-tolerant seed mix. I think that was the only question or the additional information the commission had asked for, but with regards to Brewster, we were in front of the Brewster Conservation Commission last night, and they have authorized staff there to draft up an order of conditions. So we're hoping that you folks would do the same.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Amy?
Thank you. So what they have proposed, now is very clear that there's 413 square feet of new hardscape, but that is between Harwich and Brewster. So proposal of 80 square feet of impervious in the 0 to 50 and 29 in the 50 to 100. They would need 298 square feet of mitigation, and between that, where they've shown it between Harwich and Brewster, more than the 298 square feet would be in Harwich. The plants are applicable. That is a sloped area there which would benefit from some additional planting area, even though it's not directly right at the top of the coastal bank. It kind of straddles that 50-foot no disturb zone line. I would recommend approval of the variance to do work in the 0 to 50. It is improving access and ADA access to the site, and I think we'll have a, bit of a net benefit environmentally to increase the native plantings on the site. So I would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
No comment.
Alan?
No comment.
Jim?
No comment.
Dan?
No remarks.
Looks good.
Sophia? I don't have any comments either.
Right.
Smiling.
I try every once in a while.
Do we have a motion?
Do we have to ask for comments from the
Oh,
audience?
we probably
first,
should.
John?
Is there anyone here who would like to comment? Okay, hearing none.
Hearing none, then I'll make a motion. I move that we approve the notice of intent for 2285 and 2287 Route 28, head of the Bay Road, map 119, parcel M7-3 and N8-0, and approve a variance to do work within the 0 to 50-foot no disturb zone.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a notice of intent for 2173 Route 28, head of the Bay Road, and 4 Cove Landing Road, map 115, parcels S1-3 and R2, raise and replace buildings A, B, and K, planting and hardscape improvements.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me a second, let me get my presentation up online here. Can I share this?
Behind you. Coming.
Okay.
Do I hit the share button?
Let me see if I can take one light off this room. I'm gonna see if we wanna mess that up over here. Is that all better?
That's good. Yep. You see it? There we go. So, there we go. All right, thank you for your patience. Good evening. For the record, John Bologna, Coastal Engineering. We have,
That way is
okay,
down,
okay,
this way is,
all right.
yeah.
What do you say this one's?
That's down.
All right, thank you.
Very welcome.
Good team effort here. For the record, John Bologna, Coastal Engineering. To my right here is David Hawk, Hawk Designs, Landscape Design. We also have several members of the team online here. Albert and Brooke Core from Core Studio Architects, and representatives from Wilkinson Ecological Design, Steve LeBranch, Ian Peach, and Tabitha Cagle. Also from the Law Office of Singer Law, Marion Rose, and Representative Wauquasit Resort Management is Elton Chun, and there's also some members of their hospitality team. So, let's see. There we go. You're looking at the PDF, I guess. All right, so we're here to discuss the proposed improvements to the Wauquasit Resort Golf Club. As you know, the Wauquasit is an important member of the community and contributor to the local economy. They are leaders in promoting both economic and environmental health in the community and taking great steps to protect the environment by implementing best management practices. They continue to support the community by hosting meetings and conferences pertaining to regional environmental issues. The overall property is about 22 acres. It's actually comprised of 3 separate sites which are being merged together. Many improvements were made over the years, including recent renovations to a number of the guest buildings, tennis courts and children's center, the outer bar and the grand pavilion. And then in 2008, of course, there was a 45,000-gallon wastewater treatment plant that was installed to meet the resort's needs, current and future needs. Let's see here if I can quite get exactly this. So on that lower image, you can see the 3 buildings which we're proposing on. Essentially, the scope of the work is to raise and replace 3 existing buildings. 2 of the buildings to the south of the property, circled as buildings A and B, were before this commission a number of years ago, actually 2008. Similar type of thing, raise and replace, but those 2 buildings were not done at the time. So we're before you this evening to present a plan showing the proposed improvements to the site, whereby these 3 buildings will be removed and replaced with 3 new 2-story buildings. The existing buildings are 1-story, so we'll be adding an additional 12 rooms to the facility. And in the process, the buildings will be moved back away from. Pardon me, keep on coming back there. So that's the existing condition site plan. Again, bouncing around a little bit here, pardon me. So the work is obviously covered by the Wetlands Protection Act. There's no work proposed in the resource area itself. The work is all in the 0 to 100-foot buffer zone. We're also governed by the Harwich Wetland Bylaw and the town's stormwater regulations. I'm wondering, can I share my screen here? I got a little better clarity. Can we do that? Where's the technical guy? Yeah. If it's
Can you share the screen instead of us running the presentation? We'll get out of it and we'll just share the screen.
That's a little better. Yeah, thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. It was hard seeing what was on the screen and talking at the same time.
Really small for us, though.
Is it really?
There we go.
Is that better? Thank you. Okay, so where were we? Thank you for your patience. Okay, so this gives you an idea about the overall scope of the project. Again, the 3 buildings which we're proposing to move back are the 3 buildings, 2 on the left and 1 on the right. And as you can see from the image, the existing building is shown in red and the new building's in blue. So they're all 3 of them are being pulled out away from the resource area. The entire site will be, a work area will be protected with erosion and sedimentation controls. All three buildings will be tied into an existing wastewater treatment collection system, which has been designed to accommodate the additional flow. Give you a little closer view of what the areas that we're talking about, so you can see. Let me just zoom in here. How does that look there? Okay, that gives you a better image of what we're talking about. Okay, so Building A is there's about 900 square feet of area in the no disturb zone that's being removed, and as the building is being pulled back. And then on Building K, there's approximately 600 square feet of reduction in the 50-foot no disturb zone. Tabulated on the plans is the net coverage reduction in the 0 to 50 of about 1,500 square feet, and the mitigation area is provided that exceeds the requirements. So Representatives from Wilkinson's Ecological Design will get a little bit more into the actual mitigation plan. And then I mentioned the stormwater management system as well will comply with the Massachusetts stormwater regulations, and all the roof drainage. Essentially, it's just roof drainage. There's no work being done on the parking lots or any of the other adjacent sites. So it's really just what's on the ground and what's coming off the roof, and that'll all be collected and treated on site. All right. And from there, I'm going to turn it over to the architect. I don't know if Brooke or Al, are you online?
Hi, everyone. Hi, so Albert Core from Studio Core Architects. I could give a brief architectural overview for the project. So as John had noted, the architectural scope includes raising and replacing of the 3 existing H-frame buildings, with the 3 new buildings being similar in size and program to the existing signature suites that are currently on the site. As you can see in the rendering on the screen, looking at buildings A and B, proposed buildings A and B, the design intent is to maintain the language and material palette of the Plaza Resort, and to blend into the resort's campus. So the buildings each have 8 guest rooms total, and will provide the site with 12 additional guest rooms, 3 of which will be handicap accessible. In comparison to the existing H-frame buildings, which are being replaced, the proposed buildings are being pulled back from the coastal bank. And then, what comes with new construction, in addition to the improvement off of the coastal bank, the new construction will also allow for the incorporation of improved building technologies, giving way for more energy efficient buildings and design.
Okay, thank you. Next is up is Dave Hawk, who talked about the landscaping.
Thanks, John. For the record, Dave Hawk, Hawk Design. I think it's been over 25 years since we've been involved in this property with the likes of great professionals that we've surrounded ourselves with. So it's a pleasure to be back working on the property. We've enjoyed our work there, and we've enjoyed working with the commission. As John said, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. It's basically just keeping the same program synced up. We've had some successes with the buildings right now, and we'd like to do like in kind with these new buildings. We've got walkways that are coming in. The walkways are now accessible for the most part, but in our area, these will all be accessible. They are dry set brick. The buildings are pushed back. In fact, Building A is pushed back further than it was in the last submission, which was a while ago. So we could get some mitigation space in there. All the plantings that we show within the 50-foot zone are native. We have used non-native, non-invasive plants in the 50 to 100. In that area, is there foundation plantings? We've requested that we can go with that. That will keep in line with what we've done in the other buildings that we've worked on. We're not changing the finished floors a lot. There's a lot of grade change to the back and the side of this, but things are staying pretty level. We did pull that coastal walkway out a little bit, and the reason being we have to get that accessible walkway along the coastal, the coastal bank there, or off the coastal bank. So that's actually been pulled in, and I think friends from Wilkinson will reiterate the mitigation over there. That's what's happening with A and B. Is if we go to building K, which is another unique grading situation, there's a lot of grades that fall within that area, all the way down to the cul-de-sac, to the buildings that abut it. Right now, building K sits down low, and we've got a number of, you'll see in your plan, in between that building 9 and building K, there's some mature big trees in there. So what we did, instead of demoing the retaining walls in there and then having to put in new retaining walls that would probably take those trees out, we're using the building as a wall. So on that side, we're bringing the foundation up, and then we're filling to that upper grade there. And we are going to attempt to save all those trees, which are pretty substantial, in between those two buildings. You'll also see that there was a walkway that we are proposing to remove that went into the jurisdictional areas, into the 50. And it's got quite a slope to it. In fact, I'm sure when it gets wet, I wouldn't doubt that some people have skated down that walkway due to the grades. So what we're proposing to do is to pull that up and let that come around the building so we're not messing with that slope. But we've got people that need to get down to the pool area, and we don't want them crossing the street with those steep slopes and the sight lines down there. So there's a stairway up there that connects that upper walkway down to the lower area, so they can walk around that cul-de-sac or that circle and get to the pool area without going across any of the roads there. And again, I'm sure Wilkinson, they will be speaking to the mitigation areas in that. It's basically the same thing, fire pits and small terraces that are bluestone, dry set in the backs of the areas. I think the back of the buildings are all outside of the jurisdictional areas. They are courtyards that have a hot tub and a fire pit. So, but I think all those, John, are out of the jurisdictional
That's correct,
areas.
yeah, you can see they're grayed out.
Yeah, so that's all I have. I think we'll,
Yeah, well, that's a good segue, but before we do that, just to highlight, on both these plans, you can see a different color green, so you maybe want to talk about that?
oh, certainly. Okay, so the mitigation areas that we are working with Wilkinson on are in that more of a mini green, if you can see it in the, I don't know if you got the color plans, but that's shown off to the right hand. I guess it's not showing up very well on that. Looks great on John's monitor here, but to the right of that walkway that sweeps around to the right down to the cul-de-sac, those are all mitigation areas. And if you look also at building A and building B, push building A back, so there's quite a bit of area that's shown in that same color of green, as well as along that walkway that's been pulled back to give more mitigation. Everything else is the existing lawn, which is out there in building A and B, and the native plants are within the 0 to 50.
Okay. Is there someone from Wilkinson Ecological Design on the line?
Yes. For the record, Ian Peach of Wilkinson Ecological Design. So our primary goal for this proposed ecological restoration as mitigation is the removal of invasive plant species and the restoration of areas of existing lawn, structures, and hardscape with a native plant community design, with an overall goal of increasing that native vegetated buffer right from that top of coastal bank. So as you've heard from the team, with the repositioning of the cottages and associated pathways further landward, further away from resource area, we're going to create a resource area buffer with a greater ability to infiltrate stormwater and provide ecosystem services. The former locations of those structures and lawn and hardscape will be restored to a thoughtfully designed and diverse native plant community. Our mitigation proposes 387 native trees, shrubs, sods, and ferns, as well as 700 native herbaceous plants, offering a diversity of 12 different species. The native planting design is specified to offer an immediate impact. You'll notice the container sizes are really meant to come in and be visible and offer those ecosystem services right away. Not too large for, you know, survivability questions, but we think just right to really bring the benefit right away. As I mentioned, we are proposing a planting design that will increase wildlife habitat in this critical area, pollinator support, specifically tailored with the species chosen, and a soft mass food source are just some of those ecosystem benefits. It's almost 5,000 square feet of mitigation, and it's all within that critical 0 to 50 buffer, really linking and you know, connecting to the coastal bank. I do want to speak briefly to trees. To successfully shift those cottages landward and get them further out of the 0 to 50, 10 trees are to be removed due to construction. We did have them assessed by a written report from a professional arborist at Bartlett Tree Experts. They were actually all found to be in poor health, which was readily apparent, and with heavy inundation of invasive vines in the canopy. So as we worked as a team, we really did focus on, you know, overall program to minimize tree loss, but to get those buildings back out of that 0 to 50, we did have to lose these 10 trees to construction. But we're going to mitigate for them 1-to-1 with a nice selection that are really matched to the site. We have 8 serviceberry and 2 American holly, native species that are specifically chosen for that lower solar exposure, where we'll be putting them kind of stratifying the canopy underneath existing canopy trees. So that was the species choice there. And, you know, I just finished by saying the proposed mitigation really focuses on restoring as much as possible right up along that coastal bank. You'll see on that building A side and the plan that's being shown now, we're really trying to just go right along the edge, even right up to the pathway, utilizing everything available while working with the overall programmatic intent and just thickening that buffer. If I could leave you with one thing, the goal is to thicken the buffer. So we just regard this proposed mitigation as extensive in the project areas. You're seeing building A right there as a close-up with some of the planting design. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the building K area as well. So, you know, that's our mitigation design, how we're doing it a little bit, why we're doing it, and why we think we've chosen the areas that give you the best benefit based to the resource areas and for the project. So again, that's building K side. So thank you for your time. I know we wanted to make sure you had a touch point with everybody on the team and giving us a chance to articulate, you know, the project as a whole entity. And I think now we're all available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I just want to point out that, thank you, Ian. David mentioned this, there's an existing brick walk that really runs right through the middle of that mitigation area that's being removed. And it's quite a steep grade in that area, as David mentioned, so it is a safety concern. And so taking advantage of that, removing the hardscaping in that area, and then you know, doing the mitigation in that area. So, anyways, we are open for any questions. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Amy.
Thank you. I don't have too many questions, I'll keep it brief. Worked through this project since the community development, our community development kind of meeting several months ago, and I feel like we took our comments into great consideration when you designed this project. Biggest thing was pulling back from that top of coastal bank if at all possible, which we did, and focusing the mitigation right along that top of coastal bank in the 0 to 50 foot buffer to the top of bank, making sure all plants in 0 to 50 were native. I did tell them that there potentially could be a mix of native and ornamental / non-invasive stuff in the 50 to 100, which they picked appropriate plants for that. There's a couple minor swaps that I talked with Mr. Hawk on the phone about, such as the Rose of Sharon and Lilac, which are more aggressive. Easy swaps for other things. I think it will result in a net benefit of habitat, stability, reducing hardscape and lawn in the 0 to 50-foot buffer. I do see a net benefit for this project. I will say, I did make them aware that the commission does not allow chemical application, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides in our jurisdictional area, which is the resource area, 100-foot buffer zone, and that is something that the commission has stood by and has enforced. So going forward, that would be a condition for the property. So I would recommend approval of the project, but I would be remiss in saying, and not saying something about the pruning that's been happening on the banking along Round Cove. So after I visited the site to review this project, kind of saw the pruning that had been taking place along Round Cove, the vista pruning of invasives and some oaks there, incorrect type of pruning, really just hedge pruning. And now is really the opportunity to correct that and make sure we do it in the right way. So before you prune again, you can't prune again unless you gotta file with the Conservation Commission with a notice of intent to be doing pruning. And I would encourage one of your very talented restoration team to take a look at that. A lot of it is invasive. There could be a lot of room for planting with lower scrub material, so you wouldn't have to prune as much, while at the same time better taking care of the native species like oaks and stuff that are on the bank. So adding a little bit of diversity, which will also help with your stability of that bank long term. So prior to pruning, again, my recommendation is that you file, is that the commission say you cannot prune again until you file and receive approval to do the vista pruning, or to maintain that slope. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, Sophia, let's start with you.
No comment. Looks good to me.
Okay. Mark?
No remarks, thank you.
No comments.
No comment.
No comments?
I'm very comfortable with this plan. No comment.
Okay, I have one comment, which is just to emphasize Amy's point about any turf treatment, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, whatever. This is property-wide, this isn't just these sites that are being improved, so I just wanted to make sure that that is articulated clearly when we issue the order of conditions. Any comments from anyone in the public? Further comments from the commission? Would anyone care to make a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for 2173 Route 28, Head of the Bay Road, and 4 Cove Landing Road, map 115, parcels S1-3 and R2.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Where are we now? Oh, yes, okay, so next on our agenda is a notice of intent for 4, 8, 11, 12, 16, 17, and 20 Chloe's Path and 0 Forest Street map 31, parcels D4-3, D4-4, D4-5, D4-6, D4-7, D4-8, D4-9, and D3 for the reestablishment of the Turtle Protection Plan set forth in NHESP 09-20086. Yes.
Evening. For the record, John Wiley, Peter Donovan, property owner to my right. Also in the audience is Attorney Singer. And joining us by Zoom is Mark Cooperman, the expert here with the turtle. We were here a few weeks ago, and the commission had asked for some clarity to the application, which we hope we've done. In your new updated packet, you should have a plan of this size, which will give you an idea of the entire property, Bisson Road, Chloe Path, the wetlands, Mr. Doan's property here, and the area that we're talking about tonight. Also, today, also as part of the package, we provided you a sketch plan 11 by 17, which highlights the nest area that we're trying to open up. Mark worked with my survey department, and we've identified 4 areas as well as the 2 gardens. And on this plan is a itemization of the existing vegetation that is in these areas, and they're all categorized and identified by size and type. And we also, and Mark also provided an updated narrative which addresses the plan that's on the 11 by 17. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mark, who can outline the turtle protection plan, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. So Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. Mark Cooperman with EcoTerra Design and Consulting, working on the mitigation planning for the reestablishment here of the nesting habitat improvement plan. As John mentioned, per the last meeting, we went out and tried to provide a slightly higher level of detail with regard to exactly where these areas were located and how they were characterized. And what I did when I walked back out to the site to look for these, we identified 4 areas that seemed to fit the bill for creating these nesting improvement areas. Areas A, B, C, and D. You'll see that they're all about approximately stuck to about a 30-foot diameter area. And I looked for areas that were already inherently open as much as possible within the forest edge there in order to minimize the amount of vegetative clearing. We also, per the commission's request, went out and identified with John's survey crew and characterized the 2 areas identified for Mr. Doan's garden areas, the 100 by 35 beach rose garden, and then also the 50 by 10 kitchen garden area. You'll see that I also provided, along with the site plan, you all have a copy of John's survey plan, I believe. You'll see where the 4 areas are located, in addition to the actual location of the 2 garden areas. In order to support that, I provided an updated narrative outlining those areas and also providing some pictures for those members that maybe have not been out to the site of what those areas look like. When you look into the narrative, excuse me, the photos will show where the pink ribbon is hanging, and that was, in all 4 cases, the sort of center point of the theoretical diameter circle. For the habitat improvement, we will ground truth that and make any modifications in the field when we actually oversee the work. You'll see on area, turtle habitat area A, for example, that there were approximately 5 smaller scrub oaks identified, several poplar, in addition to greenbrier and deadwood. And if you look at where they are located, you'll see area A is the closest one down to the wetland border, and then areas B, C, and D sort of fall more in around the 50-foot line, or up into the 50 to 100. We also looked for area A is down where it is because there already happens to be a cart path down there. So we also looked at this in the context of what would make sense workflow wise with minimal disruption. So all three areas are readily accessible with hand tools and or some very small power equipment in order to get the work done. We're still going to follow the original protocol as to how it's going to be done now that these areas are identified, and that is clearing of the brush that's designated, and then scarification if needed, and or placement of some sandy loam in the areas for appealing nesting habitat for the turtles. There really isn't much replanting that goes along with this because the point here is to have sparsely vegetated areas. So if we're scarifying, for example, we're going to selectively scarify the area and leave maybe some small vegetation here and there, but we generally don't want obviously a lot of vegetation and certainly not woody vegetation encroaching back into the area. If the commission members have all also looked through the narrative, you'll see that there's a detailed description of areas B, C, and D, in addition to the garden areas along the property line. The garden areas, which fall along Mr. Doan's property line there, the 100 by 35, of course, encompasses a more sizable area. You can see in the photos there, in both the 10 by 50 or the 35 by 100, the stakes that are laid out to identify that. And those are the areas that were originally provided for the agreement for some mitigation. Incidentally, I think by, the backs of those areas will also probably end up serving as some potential nesting habitat for turtles once they're cleared and soils are slightly opened up. You'll also see along the existing roadway and parking area in there, there's some piles of brush along the garden area for the beach plum garden, and those will also be cleaned up and removed from the site. All brush throughout the project will be removed from the site as discussed, and disturbance will be kept to an absolute minimum. Peter was with me on the site, and we both looked at it and realized and agreed there's very easy access with small equipment to get the work done. So with that being said, I will open it up to the commission for any questions regarding the recent detailed updates.
Thank you. Amy.
Thank you for that. Question I have, so where you're removing trees, are you proposing to just flush cut them and manage the sprouts, or are you proposing to grind them?
No, the small material will probably just remove. It'll be just as easy to remove it.
You mean
So
excavate it? Or what do you mean by remove?
So we can take for example, a small excavator and probably strap the stem or something to it and just pull it out because they are sandy soils.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, in order to get the scarification accomplished at the same time, we will definitely remove them.
Mm-hmm.
There are only a couple of pieces of larger material, and those we may decide to just flush cut and work around them.
Okay. I would recommend, so poplar is pretty invasive, so
Yes.
removal of those, if excavation is possible, or at least grinding, that would be beneficial. Because flush cutting with poplar just creates lots more baby poplars.
Right.
And it'll just, it'll have, your creation of the turtle habitat will have a bit of a harder time if you get all those resprouts. So, yeah, if you can
I think that was
physically remove the poplar, that would be beneficial. And also beneficial
Yeah,
to the buffer.
Yeah, no, I agree. Amy. I'm looking at them, just the inventory. Yeah, so they're for 2 to 3 inch in A, also for 2 to 3 inch in B, so that's not a problem, or 2 to 4 inch. I don't think there were any, 3 to 5 inch. No, they're all removable. Yep.
Great. In the area, we did notice, brush piles, one in the area where the 10 or the 100 by 35 garden area is. I walked the site with Mr. Donovan as well last week, and that could be removed. There's another brush pile farther back, kind of right around the 50-foot buffer zone line between almost where the two wetlands kind of connect. There's a channel back there.
Yep.
So there's an old brush pile there that's really getting overrun by bittersweet. If that, I know it's not in the immediate project area for the turtles, it's a little bit north of that. While you're in
Yes.
there, it would be really great to get that out. Yeah.
Peter, could you speak to that? I think that's the one you and I looked at, and I think that's not, that's on Mr. Doan's actual property.
Yeah, we'd be happy to take care of it with Mr. Doan's permission.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. And just kind of general cleanup of the area there from some of the old debris that's been stored there over the years. Would be great. We did receive today a letter from Natural Heritage. And the commission has that, tried to make it as available as possible to people. I do not have any questions other than, I would just make the point of, clearly it will make everyone's life easier if work gets done before April 14th. So we don't
Yes.
have to do some of the, you don't have to do some of the extra protection measures if you were to do it after April 14th, which is when typically the turtles come out of dormancy. I don't have too many other questions. I think the new plan is clearer of what's happening where. And that the commission incorporate the conditions set forth in the February 15th letter from Fish and Wildlife in your orders of conditions.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
I don't have anything.
Alan?
No comment. No comment.
Mark?
No comment.
Sophia?
I do have a couple questions. On the vegetation, is that the circumference? Are you measuring the circumference of the trunks?
Diameter,
The-
I believe.
Diameter of the trunk.
Diameter.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
My only thought is that it seemed like 4 big eastern red cedars coming out to put in the garden, which I get that each plum is a native plant, but if it's gonna be fenced in, it's not really habitat for much, so that's my only, I don't see any kind of trade-off for that. I think it would be nice to replace, since those are, it looks like some of the bigger trees. That's
I think it's just gonna be a split rail fence, just to delineate it.
okay.
It's not gonna be like barriered off. It's just a delineation,
okay.
so it should still
Right.
provide habitat.
Not be a barrier to, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so I just have a question about the letter. And Amy, maybe you can answer this. There's a reference at the end of the letter. It's just quoting what appears to be something from the 2016 determination.
Yeah.
How do we have to reflect that here with what we do?
Read it again, hold on. Section 4, the 20 That's their determination from 2016, so I'd have to look and see what that condition 4, if that rate reads the same. Symbolic fencing prior to the start of work, symbolic fencing shall be erected around the limit of work shown on a revised plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of typical of our requirement for limit of work, being up prior to construction.
Yeah.
So if we just refer to this letter and say all the elements of this letter must be complied with, is that?
What I did with the last permit for this is I didn't just cite the letter, I actually went through and put all their conditions in our conditions.
That sounds
To make it
better.
even clearer.
Yeah, just through the chair, Ketchum, that paragraph that's italicized, That deals with conditions that the applicant agreed to with the road construction.
Right.
Chloe's Road, there's a,
That's what I thought.
if you look at, they talk about, cross-hatched area. Well, in this turtle protection plan, and this is the plan that Misa's based their decision on, this area was cross-hatched, and they talk about a cross-hatched area here. The applicant, when they're working in this part of the project, is responsible for what's in that paragraph, as far as signage, limit of work, notice.
So anytime the applicant is working in that area, they have to put up symbolic fencing and,
Anytime you're disturbing and working the earth in this area, yes.
okay.
Yep.
And
In-
that's
in
not
the
a
vesting
seasonal
season.
thing, that's year-round, anytime they're working.
That is, that permit, that restriction carries with the property. Yep.
Okay.
As well as signage.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank
We have perhaps people in the audience, Mr. Doan?
Yes, Robert Doan on Forest Street. I just want to clarify with Mr. Donovan that the garden areas will be the trees and shrubs would be removed there,
Yes.
so I can replant?
Yep.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any further public comment? Any further comments from the commission? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve a letter of intent for 4, 8, 11, 12, 16, 17, 20 Chloe's Path and 0 Forest Street, map 31, parcels D4-3, D4-4, D4-5, D4-6, D4-7, D4-8, D4-9, and D3 to implement a turtle rehabilitation improvement plan conditioned on the conditions received by the commission from the Division of Forestry and Wildlife in a letter dated February 15th, 2023.
Do we have a second?
Can we make the correction?
Gotta be
Okay,
seconded
I'll make the
first.
second.
Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
You had mentioned forestry, it should be fisheries.
Fisheries and Wild.
Oh, fisheries, I'm sorry,
You know,
I'll accept that amendment,
I'll
Stan.
second, yep.
Sorry.
Okay, further discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next on the agenda is enforcement order for 117 and 123 Riverside Drive, and review of proposed restoration plan. We have someone here representing this item. Do you care to?
I will
review
give
it,
you a
or-
quick update. I don't suggest the commission take any action tonight. They were aware of this continuation of the show cause hearing, where they were to produce a restoration plan for area that was cleared without permit. I had correspondence with their landscaper as of either yesterday or this morning. There was, indication.
Amy? Amy, are you there?
Yes, we have quite a big reverb.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to get through on my phone and I finally got my computer. I heard everything. Yes, I am here.
Okay, is it
Um,
Tabitha?
It is, yes.
Hi.
Okay, so
Hi again.
we proceed with Tabitha.
Tabitha Eldridge of Davenport Farms.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, I have presented a plan to Amy and to the rest of you just a few days ago, and was brought to my attention that maybe I should rethink how the plan is laid out. And first, I wanted to explain that I did make those changes. I didn't get back from those 2 appointments I'd emailed you about earlier until late this afternoon. But an updated one should be in your inbox.
Okay.
The reason I had done kind of that outline over on the side where it looks like a formed flower bed, you know, somewhere besides the conservation area, is because those were where I found the tracks from the machines to be the heaviest. So I kind of focused more heavy over on that side, and I also increased the number from the original plan from MLC there, increased it by about 67 plants to make up for that additional disruption to the natural vegetation that was there. I do like your thoughts on what you had suggested for changing out a few of the plants. And I did want to ask you if you had a chance to see the newest emailed plan.
I checked my email at 6 o'clock, and we started at 6:30. So I checked my email at 6, and I didn't see anything that had come through. And
Okay.
so, but it's certainly something, I'm glad you're online. And it would be something that I could, I would review tomorrow. Could definitely get
Okay.
back to you, and if need, we could meet on site, if the need would be. But I'm not prepared to talk about it tonight, and the commission hasn't seen the revision, so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So my recommendation to the commissioners is that we table this for 2 weeks to give us a chance to review the revised plan. And Tabitha, I can touch base with you in the next day or two about the revision.
Excellent.
Okay, so I guess no action required here, so
Let's make it formal. I mean, this was an enforcement action, so I would request that you vote to continue this discussion to March 1st.
okay. I'll move that we continue the discussion on the enforcement order for 117 and 123 Riverside Drive to March 1st.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can we go slightly out of order in order to take some of the people who've been sitting here?
Sure, which,
Well, I know people are here for, you're here from Harbor Watch.
Great.
We can that'll be quick. Let's proceed.
That is the next
I'm
item.
sorry, I noticed you.
That's all right, Amy, thank you.
I
You know, I
apologize.
really enjoy watching you at work. I think you are absolutely terrific.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It won't be long, the rest of you folks. These aren't hearing so much as getting permits out the door. Okay.
So Christian DeVos, I'm the president of the association. I was here 2 weeks ago with John Pezzulo, which is know more about the project than I, because he has been working on it for several years.
please give your name.
Christian DeVos.
This is for the order of conditions for Harbor Watch, which is next on our
Oh,
agenda.
okay, all right.
So I drafted the conditions. I met with Morgan Mason of Mason Tree Service on the property the other day.
Yeah, I saw you there. It was busy.
It came out. It wasn't that nice of a day outside that day. We had missed the rain though. So I talked to Morgan about proper pruning techniques and did a little demonstration for proper pruning techniques for some of those species out there. I do want to see it after he does it. Just just to make sure that they're looking good. The conditions are very similar to your conditions last time, pre-construction meeting. We kind of already had that the other day.
Yep.
Cut debris to remove from site, no fertilizers, including organics or herbicides, to be used within a 100-foot buffer zone.
So we can ask you a question about this because we're just reviewing with Fairway. You obviously know way more about this than I ever will know or want to know. So we're looking at Fairway for the moment. I believe they have different plan and it's an organic plan. Do you want to review those or?
I would like to review
Yeah,
it,
I will-
even organic fertilizers.
I think it's chicken feed, I guess.
Yeah, I'd wanna, we can discuss it, but they, they have nutrients, which is what fertilizer is, it's
Mhm.
nutrients, but I just wanna make sure it's not gonna impact, you're really close to the Allen Harbor embayment there.
How does I do this with you, Amy? I just received it 2 days ago. Do you want me to bring it to your office or?
Forward it to me or bring it to my office.
I will do it.
But the commission can tell you, we typically do not allow even organics.
Okay.
But that's only in the 100-foot buffer, but I'm happy to review what they propose for you. Vista pruning take place either before April 1st or after September 1st, so that's not gonna interfere with bird nesting season. I would like to see it immediately after the work's done, ideally with the tree company. And I did put there, what the issue that came up before was, the order of conditions had lapsed, and we cannot extend something if it's expired, that's state. But if, the work has been, this is a 3-year permit, if the work has continuously been done in compliance for 3 years, the commission could consider an ongoing condition to allow for the maintenance, but we've gotta have 3 good years in track record first. You'll see those, conditions, but, does anybody have any questions about the conditions? Or for the gentleman here?
I had a couple comments
Please?
that I sent to you, but.
Yes, we got those.
So one of them is just a
Yes.
minor typo thing, but I'm just wondering about the invasives that are there and keeping them completely under control. And I know you don't want to do anything other than pruning them for the moment, but I think we should allow for, in the future, if you so choose, to actually do something a bit more active to get rid of the bittersweet in particular, by taking appropriate measures with herbicides, which would mean having someone qualified to do the work, not just anybody, not just any landscaper even, somebody who,
Mass certified, then fast
Mass
certified,
certified and
herbicide
who-
applicator.
who I would say, we'd go a little further and require that whoever you would choose for that work, if you so choose in the future, would need to be cleared by at least a conservation agent.
The level of invasives out there, Mr. Chairman, are so significant that if they wanted to do invasive management, I'm totally for it. But I think it should come back as an amendment. And that way, we talk about, if an extensive amount of, if removal has to happen, then that's a lot of area that replanting would have to occur, so that invasives can't come back readily. So I would just recommend it as an amendment, something we would readily consider.
The association, would be welcome to
Yeah.
to your comments and your suggestions, because truly we don't really know.
Yeah, a lot of times, it would be less management for you, because the invasives can grow, some of those invasives can grow 10, 15 feet a year, like the bittersweet. So it could be less management, maybe more work initially, but less work going forward. We can talk if the board is
We'll
interested.
definitely,
Anybody else have any comments? Okay. Can we have a motion?
Okay, I'll move that we close the public hearing and authorize the issuing order of conditions for 363-371, Route 28, map 13, parcel A8-1, SE 32-2520.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thanks. This will be ready by Friday. Morgan said he wasn't gonna start the work till next week, so make sure he gets a copy of it.
Okay, next here is an order of conditions for 31 Shore Road, map 2, parcel B1-7, amendment to SE 32-2430.
This was an amendment for additional shorefront protection using soft solutions and reset of the stones on the portion that does have a revetment. Do you have any questions of that one?
I sent you typo,
The typos we got.
but I don't have any.
Yep.
Anybody else?
No. Okay. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and authorize the issuing of an order of conditions for 31 Shore Road, map 2, parcel B1-7, amendment to SE 32-2430.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so you're here for 56, request for a certificate of compliance for 56 Hermikeen Lane, map 24, parcel H17, SE 32-2293 for new dwelling and appurtenances. Amy or?
Hi, I'm Chris Plaze. I represent Kinlan Grover Compass. We're the selling agents on the property.
I see.
But we're also the ones that help with the builder with his permitting and everything else. So, also with me is my wife. You
Hi.
want to say your name?
Lissa. We're
We're Team Plaze.
Yeah, we're the realtors.
Yeah. Make a long story short, we bought this house, or bought this lot, our builder bought this lot, knowing that it had an existing permit, and with conservation setbacks, met with Amy at the beginning of the project. Project started around August of this past year. We kept the, before I met with Amy, obviously, we set up the boundaries, the work limit boundaries, before we didn't want to touch the Gorham Bog, which is absolutely beautiful. So the work limit never was exposed at any point in time. After construction of the home was done, we did notice one tree was leaning, and one tree was actually over the house. That was actually touching the house as it was being built, and we tried to keep it as untouched as possible. It was just a branch. Instead of removing the whole tree, we just removed the branch with Amy's approval, with a permit, and a site inspection, and also cut one tree flush that was over the setback limit, but was clearly over the house and proposed danger if there was ever a storm, which would have caused more damage to the undisturbed area. With that being said, the one thing that I did notice when Amy went out on her site last week, or two things. One was that we didn't realize, because again, it wasn't on the plans, that you had to put the air conditioner in the same place, but with the proper securing of the air conditioner condenser, which is outside, and propane tanks, because per Maneki, even though it has gas at the street, none of the neighbors have gas. So in order to run the natural gas all the way down there, it just wasn't feasible for this site, and it probably would have caused more disruption to the, not only our work site, but to the neighborhood itself. So we try to limit that by using propane tanks, which are also next to the condenser, but within the proper limits. Building inspector to come out, we didn't realize that, again, they weren't on the building plans that we inherited. We built the house to spec as close as possible.
The plans were not.
Yeah, they weren't as detailed,
as we
because this is an
normally do.
older permit that went out there, and we're basically now in front of you, because there's a new buyer out there that plans on donating the remaining portion of the land back to the Conservation Commission, which I think will only help the Gorham Bog and its longevity, knowing that it won't be disrupted now or in the future, which is really good. It's unbuildable land anyways, but it would be really nice for the conservation department to put it underneath their, or the land trust to put it within their bank that they have, which I think is a really good thing, so no developer can use it for, nitrogen dislodge or anything like that in order for permitting. With that being said, we try to use as many native materials as possible. The grass is organic, won't have any fertilizer on it at any point in time. It's sod from the New England region with a clover in it. which will still look green in the summertime, even in dry seasons. There's no sprinkler system, no gutters, and proper drainages throughout the lot. And in addition, we've kind of put a little bit of extra there on the riprap stone going along the driveway in order that the the exposure to anywhere on, over the work set limit will never be disturbed in the future or now.
So, so I said there were some minor deviations. One, the deck was kind of supposed to have a weird cut in it, so that it really was to create better egress, walking egress around the house.
We stopped the egress around the house. We thought it was too close to the work limit, that we
It
didn't
is
want the
hard.
future person walking around it.
Yeah, I mean, they may want to be able to check their house from time to time.
Yeah.
But, these are things I think the commission would have approved had we had seen them originally
Okay.
as part of the project. Did you, since I brought it up about the AC and the propane, did you reach out to the building?
No, I haven't had a chance yet.
Okay. I'm not a pro in how you tie down the tanks appropriately, because it isn't a floodplain.
Right.
Like I said, I do think it's more of a building issue, potentially than us. I do feel like if they had asked, if this had been part of the original application, compared to the rest of the application, it took a long time to permit this project.
Right.
Because this was a very difficult site. But had they put the AC, the propane tanks.
Yeah, when they did the original
When
permit.
they did the original work, and that deck had been squared instead of sliced, I do think the commission would have approved it. It's all within the limit of work. There, no disturb zone fence looks great. Nothing behind that has been disturbed. One of the conditions, one of the requests on the permit was essentially there's an unbuildable portion of the property, not really the bogs, but kind of buffer zone to the
Right.
bogs going to the north. That's not buildable. Could be used if they were to use it for, because it's another lot, actually. If somebody wanted to buy it, it's in a zone two, buy it for nitrogen attenuation to put more septic somewhere else in that zone two, they could buy that little piece of property potentially to offset and get more septic capacity elsewhere.
Oh, like in New
So,
Seabury.
there's a potential for that. It's a really nice buffer to that other bog, so it'd be great to put that under conservation custody, either the trust or the town or somebody. I have spoken with the new buyers, and they seem to actually love that it's so natural.
They are the perfect buyers for this lot and for the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, they love the.
There's this, on the side slope next to the neighbors, it's still kind of bare.
Yeah, we're gonna plant grass this week.
Okay.
Yeah, we're either gonna plant the natural seed, like you said, with the mesh, if we can, but if we can get some sod up there this time of year. I mean, it's been such a warm November that they might be able to cut it. We're just gonna do the sod on that side.
The commission typically doesn't allow sod, but when they approached me back in, what, December?
Yes,
Was it?
it's organic.
And, or it's a native sod. They approached, and it was just a very bare site, and we were having a lot of rain runoff events there. And we're like, well, seed is probably not gonna take right now. So we got the specs on the sod. It is a native sod. I let them put that in because I thought that was better than letting the place run off. There's no irrigation,
No.
in the sides and back of the house. I didn't really check the front, because the front.
There's no irrigation, because the septic system's there and
Yeah, the front
we rip up
is actually
wires
not in our
and.
jurisdiction. But I checked for irrigation on the back and side, and there's nothing. So that will eventually just become a Cape Cod lawn if it's not treated and not irrigated, so. I guess I would recommend a cert of compliance with the contingency that if the building department requires you to do anything different, especially with the propane tank
Mhm.
in the flood zone, that you'd have to come back for a minor approval administratively for us.
Okay, so if they approve it as is, we're all right. Okay.
Yeah, but I do want you to have, either Dave or Jack out
Yep.
there from
Yep.
our department.
Sure.
And what about the engineering?
You need an occupancy permit anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need an occupancy permit. We haven't had final inspection. We still have floors to go down.
Okay.
Using
And
natural
Down
hardwoods
Cape Engineering's coming out
to do the final,
next week to do,
the final,
for the statement that you need to
Yes.
close out. So
Yeah.
there, Danny Gonzalez said he's coming, to start it hopefully next week,
to do measurements.
to do measurements.
Make
to
sure that we're within
it's-
setbacks of everything. Especially. I think we're all right, though.
And is it critical that we move on this tonight if we don't, without that statement? And without, I mean, I did my inspection, and these are the things that I found to be a little bit off.
But what you're talking about is an engineered as-built plan. That,
We did not require an as-built plan. That was a mistake on my end a couple years ago.
We did
so-
submit an as-built, though, to the town for,
Foundation plan, I think.
Yeah, foundation
not-
plan.
Not a site.
oh,
plan.
as-built, I'm sorry,
but
yes.
when you said someone's coming out to do measurements, what measurements are you talking about?
Not measurements, I shouldn't say that, just to make sure that we put up the fence, the same thing that she already inspected.
So we requested that the engineering company go out and do a compliance check, a letter. We didn't require the plan, it wasn't in the order, I couldn't make them do that.
I
But a
see.
compliance letter, so it's up to the commission if you want to, I mean, is there a huge rush tonight?
Well, we'd like to close within the next 2 weeks, before the March 1st next meeting. That's why we proposed it today, if we could. The new homeowners are anxious to get in there. Like you said, they want to preserve it. They love the natural beauty of it and not moving.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted a house in the forest, and that's as close as you could to a house in the
But
forest
we're
next to
the
a
ones
beach.
in a little bit of a harder position because
Right, I
things
get
were
it.
not done exactly how they should have been done,
Yeah.
so.
So, but the issues, the actual issues here, from your point of view that weren't done exactly right, are the location of the
Air conditioner.
condenser and or whatever it is, and the propane tank, and the deck isn't exactly the same shape. It's touching apparently the 50-foot buffer line where it would have been a little away from there. Those are the issues. There aren't any other issues, right?
I did not see any other issues. I would not anticipate
In-
Danny from Down Cape, or, finding anything else either, but,
In the way that the deck's built, again, the sonotubes are all within the work limit where it is. It's just the decking, kind of like the upper level where you'd actually stand on the deck is just over, but it wouldn't have any impact on the environmental area, other than
it's
the
not
deck. has
past,
it.
it's not
Yeah.
past the limit of work. for
Yeah,
us.
it's not past the limit of work.
Anybody have anything to say about this?
When's the letter? Oh, go ahead, Mark. Was this issued before we had the 10-foot buffer on the 50-foot zone? Prior to?
This permit, there's a long history with this project. This permit has been active since the 90s.
And I apologize, I did not know that.
We didn't know that when
Until
we-
Amy made us aware of it when we first bought the lot.
I mean, if we had loads of time, I would enlighten you with the history of this property, but that would take the rest of
Well, this letter
the
that
day.
you're getting, when is that gonna be ready?
I don't know, because again, they're giving us like a 3-month limit on it. That's why we wanted to come ask mercy from the board.
Yeah,
Well, it sounds like it would have been in compliance at the time.
What do you mean? At what time?
When the permits were issued initially,
It was
Yes.
for a different house design. Originally.
that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, an as-built should be required.
No, I mean, back in the 90s, like, this is a more recent reapplication. So
We didn't change the
only-
plans.
No, they did not change the recent plans that I'm saying the plans in the 90s changed and that we reapproved them.
Okay.
The changes from the plan as I see them, the changes from the approved plan as I see them are the AC, or the condenser, the propane tanks, and the deck. Those are the changes.
Okay, well,
It's just the shape of the deck.
Okay, the
Yeah.
propane tanks and the condensers are regulated by other divisions.
It is in our 50 to 100 foot buffer and in the floodplain, that's why I bring it up.
Mhm.
typically would have liked to have seen that on a plan prior, when we approved it.
Amy, I'm just trying to understand what this letter's for, then.
It may not be, we may not need it at this point, we may not need it.
It confirms that things are where this plan shows.
Basically.
Right, and we'll still submit it to the to
That would probably be
conservation.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
upon completion, but again, the way, I don't know if obviously you guys know.
Will a closing be impacted by that letter?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then,
Well, if we don't have, if we don't get the approval tonight, then we'd have to wait all the way
You
until.
mean
no,
the
no,
uh,
but do you letter, does that letter is that part of the documentation?
Oh, no, not for the attorneys, no, it isn't.
No.
The sign off
It
of
was
the
for-
permit of the conservation is why we're here tonight.
So you can't close unless we,
No,
Right.
we can't, because you can't get a building permit, I mean, you can't get the final
got it,
occupancy.
yeah, of course.
Well, technically, you can get an occupancy without
Right.
certificate of compliance.
But we,
Anyway.
But then it'd be.
but the buyers want the certificate of compliance.
Excuse me, John, a question for Amy. This letter of compliance that we're expecting,
Mhm.
do you have any idea when we may get that?
No, they've been talking with the engineer.
Do
Yeah,
you have any
yeah,
idea?
we do. He said 3 months.
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, it's down Cape Engineering, and they're all busy right now. Like,
Okay, when did you ask for it?
we asked for it
The
a
minute we
month ago.
Found out what we,
So
yeah.
it may still be another 2 months.
It may be another 2 months at least.
Okay. 'Cause,
I'm not, those are the three things that were not quite right.
okay.
We don't have to worry about setbacks to property lines. It's not one of those where you have to worry about other issues. I inspected the property, I did look at the corners of the house, you know, in proximity to everything else. Everything else is how it was. I should have made it clear in the original order of conditions that we needed an as-built. We didn't. I don't think we can hold them liable for my mistake.
It's a sticky wick.
It is.
It's a
Yeah.
sticky wick, because it's a
Mhm.
tough one, because we hold other people to the.
I don't know, it was.
I can promise you this one thing:
It
we'll
was
never
nothing-
build a conservation
no,
again.
And I'm not saying towards any,
Yeah.
it's just the situation, it makes it very difficult for you and for us.
Yes.
I'm just curious, as 186 Bank Street, we made them people move that generator pad because it was within, right on the 50-foot back of that house. Why are we
Correct.
not doing the
It's
same?
not in the 50 here.
It's not in the 50?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
No.
And we moved it as close to the front of the house too, so it's a very narrow lot, I guess, is a way to explain it too. And I encourage you, if you want to go out and see it, you can see it.
They're here.
It's close
So here's
as
the 50.
possible to
Oh,
the
okay.
front of the house.
They're
All
here.
right, okay.
And the deck is now like this.
Yeah, that's quite a septic system. Triangle, I've ever seen that before.
It was
It's a
It was a
denitrate.
to get this in.
It's that Title VI, we'll call it.
That's right.
I guess I'm a little bit confused, Amy. I thought you had said that, are the propane tanks within the 0 to 50?
No, nothing is in the 0 to 50.
Nothing is in, okay, then I was confused on that.
Yep, this was in there,
Yeah,
but
I
I
thought she
sketched
said
in
that it
blue.
was-
Yeah, I
We
thought,
should've got on
I
the
thought
plan
she
early
said
on,
that there was something
replacement.
within the 0.
No,
So
there's
there's
nothing
within the 0
there's
to
nothing
50.
in the 0 to 50. It
Is,
is natural.
are there any stakes still in the property, like a previous marking of where the 50-foot line is?
I don't know.
The
I
50
don't.
foot was really the fence. So the
Septic
fence is there.
system.
Oh yeah,
Looks
fence
good.
is there.
The 50-foot buffer.
No, she's talking about the
is
original
still
silt
there.
fence.
Any reason to doubt that the house isn't where the plan shows the house?
Oh no.
Well, then what do we need?
We typically require it. It was an oversight that we didn't, but I do not have any doubt that other than those two little things, that this is as it's supposed to be.
Okay, then my question is, then why did we request the letter of compliance? Is it because of our regulations?
When I had talked to them, well, I thought we could get something a little quicker too.
Yeah,
Um,
that seems a long time.
And to be honest, I forgot that that letter was even potentially forthcoming
Yeah, it's okay.
between last time and now.
We already sent it to the state, to the federal, or the state permit
Because there was
too,
a state permit too.
that we
Or,
closed
yeah.
out.
Well, that was the old
Old one.
Old one. So you guys supersede.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we did that A8.
Again, we inherited this all from Davenport, which had all the permits. They sold the permitted lot with conservation, and when I read that, the
Which
conservation.
sounds easy.
Sounds easy at first, but
Yeah,
really.
from what I remember, our conversation like a month ago was, okay, we're not requiring you an as-built plan, but if we could get something that says, yes, it's been done, like a statement.
Mhm.
Yep. So then I asked,
It would still be nice to have that statement.
Okay.
Oh, we're definitely gonna
But
make sure it's part of
I would
it.
recommend that you issue the cert of compliance. And again, if they have to change anything because of the propane or the condenser, because of the building department, that they get probably administrative approval through us.
Mhm.
I'm sorry to put you in that position.
Well, Tim is shaking his head, so I'm gonna make the motion.
You read me well, John.
So I'm gonna move that we approve the issuance of a certificate of compliance for 56 Pumpkin Lane, map 24, partial H17, SE 32-2293, and require that the applicants submit an engineer's letter confirming the as-built measurements when they, within 90 days.
Sounds good.
Discussion?
I just got a question.
Sure.
So the original permit was back from the 90s, and that permit was, when they changed ownership, that was continue on through ownership?
Yeah, we did. We checked with the town before we did it, that it could transfer over to us.
All right,
The
so,
basic, I can run, do you want me to run through the basic series?
no, I'm trying to make a thing here that maybe this might help. So why can't we just have this condition through the new owner that they bring back the as-built after the conveyance, after it's been changed hands? I don't know if the new owner would
Can't
accept
put-
that.
No, you
You
can't do
can't put a
that.
new
Can't do
condition on something, the hearing's closed.
All right, well, I'm wrong in that statement, I guess, but I'm trying to find a way to leave some meats and potatoes for us, because even though there was an error,
The 90 days to submit the
Yeah,
record
to
should,
submit.
so
Yeah.
certified.
well, they'll still do
I tried to do
it.
that in the motion.
all right,
He said
I'm just trying to make sure.
I understood what John was doing.
Require them to submit that document within 90 days.
Okay.
That's the meat and potatoes.
Or what, that's, yeah.
Wasn't fine,
Let's see.
compliant.
What? That's always the question.
Or what will be back
We
here.
have our,
We're native Cape
we're
Codders,
very
we live
by
on the
the
Cape.
book.
We live in Mashpee, but
I'm not trying to make it
used to
difficult.
vacation.
I'm trying to
Bank
make it
Street.
easy, but
Yeah.
I love Bank Street Beach when I used to
I just
vacation.
think we have other applicants come before us with other things that
I get
are
it.
I agree with Alan.
pushed to the,
I understand.
I mean, I agree with Alan, and we've had other applicants that have come that have had not exactly the same type of situations, but timeline situations, and we haven't granted lenience on those. As was brought out earlier, there was a place where we required somebody to move something. Yeah, and John, while I understand what you're trying to do, I don't think once we order a certificate of compliance, we can put in a condition that may void that later on, because it would be a very difficult remedy to enforce. If you sold, you didn't get the letter, 90 days passes, your certificate of compliance is void, does that mean the conveyance is going to be void?
No,
I think it may cause more problems than it may help.
it won't. It actually, the delay will,
I
yeah.
disagree with you on
Oh.
that.
yeah,
but
I
that's-
disagree too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Could create a smell, big time.
yeah, it could create some very difficult title problems.
Yep.
Okay, so I have two choices now, because I made a motion.
And I
it
seconded
got
And it was
seconded.
seconded, so we
So,
can, we
well,
can vote on your
We
motion.
can vote,
John.
or, let's vote on the motion. I think
Yeah,
we
let's
should do
vote
that.
on the
Okay,
motion.
so, all those in favor?
Aye, since I seconded it.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, sorry, guys.
That's okay. Thank you.
I mean, we
I get it.
feel
No, it's
sorry
fine.
for your situation.
It's
but-
fine.
So, right now, I mean, it's not, we don't have a denial, because you just have a non-approval.
Right, right.
That's all. Yeah.
So, I mean, basically,
So do you
I
want
mean-
that, and do you want a letter?
yeah, I mean, once we get the letter,
Okay.
then you can come back and ask for it, because then we'll have something.
So you gotta get on the case of your engineer.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
Oh, she's going to tomorrow.
I don't want to be on the end of that phone call.
Well, no, they don't,
It's all our
care.
fault.
Yeah, no, it's
They
not
really
your
don't.
fault.
They-
It's not your fault.
No, they don't care, do they?
Yes,
They
they
care,
do it.
unfortunately.
No.
You know. But thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so what do we have?
I didn't see any minutes.
Well,
They
there
were
is a
right
set
at
of
the
minutes.
end, so if you,
They
they
didn't,
literally, they got done at the very end, so
I
it's
didn't see
the,
it in my Dropbox.
it's there now. This is,
no, Melissa told me, she got them at the very end of the day, so if you don't have, if you haven't reviewed them, it's not a big deal, we can do it next time.
you know, I'm not in favor of deferring minutes. They get deferred way too much. I think,
Do you want me to go print off ones? I don't mind.
I'd like to really, they're here, let's just
Well,
dispense with this,
we
and I
can sign
apologize
these
to
while
you
you're gone.
guys,
But I gotta make copies for people who don't have,
I'm giving you guys 5
Well, I
minutes to
didn't see
read the minutes. It's not a long set, typical meeting, it's for the short meeting we had.
what set of minutes is it? Remind me.
It's January 27th.
All right.
It's just one
It's the
second.
I'll be
Friday
right back.
afternoon. It's like two,
I will be right back then.
I didn't see him in my Dropbox.
well, they're here now, and she's
I
gonna,
can't open anything in the Dropbox.
well, the network is very flaky tonight, and I keep getting kicked off the network.
Good idea, Howard.
That was Wayne's idea.
Good idea.
Good idea. I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Not sure. Well, Harbor Watch, they got okay, didn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we signed something we just voted against, hang on a minute. Which one we got? Those are all the ones she gave me, or gave us. All right,
Where do you see
In case you're wondering, that comes due in
Oh, the
90 days.
January 27th work session?
Just in case you're wondering, that comes due in 90 days, that thing you just signed.
okay. Oh, it does, yeah, oh, yeah. Thank you, Chair.
What are you up to?
What do we do?
Just picking on him.
Ah, he's just trying to say.
It's
that we
just
made
his
it.
house.
Yeah, probably did.
Get
yeah.
upset. You only need 4 on these, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. See, I wasn't cheap. I got some good stuff.
Oh, you did get some good ones, huh? Yeah, good boy.
I'll get you out of the doghouse for a few days.
What are those little chocolate things there? Those are gas station chocolates?
Nah. On sale, 50% off. You buy them the day of. Oh, God.
Walgreens are gonna have a sale on Valentine candy.
Did you see the thing?
Hey, well, you can buy it now, you put it in the glove box and you pick up,
Did you
save
see,
it.
did you
Yeah.
see the
Keaton's
news
pretty good.
yesterday? They're showing these big hearts. You know, like in, like the Russell Stover and all of those.
I can't, lucky
And
me, I
there's-
can't
when
buy
they open them
Patty
up, there's
Roses
like 8
because
pieces,
their
because it's
goddamn
all
cat will eat
plastic in there.
So I don't have to buy them.
The way they design, you know, how they have the insert on, it's like we
You give that
buy
cat,
8 pieces
catnip,
of
that's a good
That's
cat.
it, that's a good boy, he's a good boy.
packing.
Presentations,
Some of them
everything.
dirt, but he's a good boy. No, I got my wife a dozen roses on Sunday. But then I went and bought the candy yesterday afternoon, it was 50% off. So that's why he said, when'd you get to the gas station? Maura, I love you. She can see me on TV, yeah.
Get her the new car yet?
I'm working on it.
You've been lucky, it's been a warm winter.
Yeah, that's.
It's cheaper if you're married to get, you know.
Oh, God.
That's a car, nice, you know, mink coat maybe?
Yeah, right.
There you go. With a beaver skin hat. Like Davy Crockett
Davy
hat.
Crockett raccoon hat. Oh, God. Oh. She'll be texting me, I'm watching you.
There's a, we were in the car Monday, and there was on the radio, the guys are, okay, all you guys are going to go to such and such place and get your card and your tire pressure gauge.
This is this Friday thing.
I read it, so I didn't
This
see it.
is a change in the hair.
Light is so red.
Looks good to me.
Okay, and great, this serves as a reminder when the next one is.
I was just gonna say, it's next Friday.
I'm not
Next
gonna
Friday.
be.
Is it?
Yep.
Not.
That afternoon meeting?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Jesus, been a month already?
Okay,
Almost.
okay,
Week,
be like
3
that.
weeks? Wow.
It's for my
Time flies.
grandson's
Yeah,
birthday
yeah,
and
yeah.
granddaughter's birthday from January 3rd.
Next Friday, okay.
Good, you have.
She doesn't get a birthday.
More fun than I should have got.
That's good, it keeps you young.
Okay. Anybody have any comments?
I know.
Yeah, I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
These minutes for Friday, January 27th, 2023. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Do we have anything on the Herring River study? Okay, I'm open to other motions.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Second that emotion.
Did you sign all those things?